Hey guys, and welcome to Natural Aesthetics. This video is about old school bodybuilders, and in particular 8 guys who I've picked out that I think as naturals of today we can kind of aspire to attain the physiques that they achieved, and in some cases actually surpass their physiques. So I'll start from the earliest. This guy, Eugene Sandow, was the first notable bodybuilder really. He was born in the late 1860s, so he's definitely natural. And it's a pretty fantastic physique that he achieved, given that the apparatus they had back then to train was so limited. Just a multitude of dumbbells and barbells they really used. Didn't really have any apparatus to train their chest. Very good arm and forearm development. Thigh development is obviously good. Fantastic stomach, shoulders. A powerful looking physique. As did a lot of the guys back then. They had that sort of thick, powerful looking physiques. Because most of the training they did was with compounds. They didn't really do any specific isolation exercises. So this is really the first kind of noteworthy bodybuilder that we have. So for definite we can say that he's natural. And this physique is obviously achievable as a natural. I'm not talking 2 or 3 years, I'm talking between 5 and 15 years depending on your genetics. He carries a decent amount of muscle mass. So we'll move on to the second guy, and that's a guy called George Hackenschmidt. Again, was born in the late 19th century. He was a wrestler, and again had that kind of thick, sturdy-looking physique. Pretty good shoulders, arms, very good legs. Lacking in the pectoral department again. It's more so because of the equipment they had on offer at that time to train the chest. Pretty good physique here. I don't know if that's the same guy. So very impressive. Then the third guy, a guy called Ernest Kiting, again slightly later. This guy was an Olympic weightlifter who won a gold medal at the 1920 Olympics, and we can say that he's natural. It was really he trained before steroids became available, and fantastic arm development on this guy. Very, very thick in the arms, especially triceps, because back then the Olympic weightlifting they did, there wasn't any jerking. It was more so a press, so you had to have extremely good shoulder development and tricep development to do well at the sport, unlike now where you use mostly momentum and it's more of a full body lift. So very, very impressive. So it wasn't really until the late, say mid-1930s that there was a huge amount of research being done on steroids and testosterone, and then it really wasn't until the 1960s or late 1950s that steroids became widely used in gyms. A lot of bodybuilders were obviously using them, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. People of that era were all taking steroids, but these guys were all prior to that. This guy was born in the late 19th century, so by the time he was 20, it was 1913. So they weren't around at that time. Drugs weren't around. There are athletes perhaps in the 40s that were using, but they're very, very limited. It wasn't until the late 50s and 60s that it became widespread. The next guy, again, pretty sure that he was natural. He was born in 1910, so he would have been sort of 25 by 1935. So he would have done, a good stretch of his training career as a natural, at the very, very least. This physique is more than achievable as a natural. It's a very, very good physique. Nice thick lats, good leg development, fantastic arm development. None of these guys had weak arms. None of these guys at all. They all had strong arms. Very, very thick triceps and forearms. A very nice aesthetic physique. A lot of these physiques just seem to flow quite nicely. And I think that's probably because of the lack of isolations that they used when they're training. They're all strong and they all used a lot of compound movements. This is a fantastic shot. Fantastic forearms, very, very thick arms, and a brilliant taper because of the wide lats, wide shoulders, and obviously very small waists. There was no stomach distension back then at all. It just wasn't an issue. They always like to hold a slight vacuum on a lot of the poses, as you can see, which just helps with the flow of the physique. I think it's my preferred way to show off my body, and I think more bodybuilders need to do it today. Unfortunately, when you're heavily drugged up, it's just impossible with the amount of muscle mass you're carrying. Then we're going to move on to the last four, and Reg Park. Slightly later, this guy born in 1928, so there's a possibility that he did take steroids, but he was adamant that he was natural. I read an interesting interview with his kid actually when he died, and he said that he never lost his integrity and took steroids even when there were people younger than him training, i.e. guys like Dave Draper and Arnold when he was still competing. And they were using steroids. His son said that he never lost his integrity and his respect for himself and continued to stay natural, which is quite interesting. And you can see in a lot of these pictures the difference in size between these guys that were obviously a lot younger than him. So yeah, this physique again is achievable as a natural. Very nice physique. Yeah, again, great shoulder development, great lats. Fantastic arms, perhaps slightly smaller arms than some of the other guys of this era, but still, proportionate. They're not too small for his physique. It looks good. Very, very thick, sturdy physique. A fantastic rib cage. This sort of posing just seems lost nowadays. I don't know if it's just the way they held themselves or the utilisation of exercises like breathing squats and pullovers. I'm not entirely sure, but they chose to show off their tight waists, small waists, in favour of actually flexing the stomach muscles, which I think is a better way to pose, as I previously mentioned. So yeah, fantastic physique. I love all this old school stuff. Really interesting for me to see physiques of these guys and the training that they use to achieve their muscularity. Very, very strong guys. You don't see many pro bodybuilders these days lift these kind of weights. I think, in my opinion, professional bodybuilding now is an absolute joke when you compare it to the likes of these guys. This is what I aspire to be. I don't aspire to be any of the pro bodybuilders now. And I'm very much looking forward to getting back into this style of training again, after having done sort of a light bodybuilding pumping routines for quite some time now. So the next guy on the list is Dan Lurie. Again, born in the early 1920s, so there is a possibility that he used steroids a little bit later, but it's doubtful. There was at least a big chunk of his career where he was natural, and again in interviews he's adamant that he was natural. Very, very strong guy. As you can see, thick muscularity. Very, very small waist. Quite impressive physique indeed. So the next guy on the list is a guy called Marvin Eder. I think out of all the physiques on this list, he has the most impressive physique. Around a similar sort of time as Steve Reeves, Dan Lurie. So let's go to pictures. There's not much on this guy, I have to admit. He's kind of stayed out of the limelight. But I read a very, very interesting interview. Actually, it was written this year, or it was at last updated this year. He talks about steroids and how bodybuilding has become so disgusting these days. And he's adamant in that interview that he would have never have touched drugs. It was all about health for him and improving his physique without the use of chemicals. He even went so far as to joke about the bodybuilding comps now to his friend and said that they should call it Mr. Chemical because they're so heavily reliant on it. And he wants nothing to do with it. He's, like I said, he's really stayed out of the limelight and kind of has nothing to do with weightlifting anymore. He said that even if they were to honour him and bring him into a competition, to honour him as an old classic bodybuilder, he would want no part of it because he finds it so repulsive that the amount of drugs these guys take. This guy had fantastic genetics. His strength feats were insane. He was reported to have done 8 consecutive pull-ups with one arm, pressing 330 pounds, dumbbell side raises for his shoulders with 120-pound dumbbells. So ridiculously strong. And he achieved this physique at a very, very early age with very little training. I think 2 years of training. You know, proper heavy training. Really, really interesting to watch these guys. So the next guy, the last guy, Steve Reeves. Out of all the guys, I'd say that he's perhaps most likely to have taken steroids because of the era that he was training in. Just a couple of interviews that I've read, where guys were kind of spilling the beans and saying he was part of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Sergio Oliveira's crew, and he used to use drugs with them. However, you know, he was adamant that he was natural, and he did a lot of work to promote natural bodybuilding in his late days as well. And this physique is more than achievable as a natural. This is Steve Reeves, yeah, I believe so. Again, fantastic lat development, very, very good genetics, very small waist. This is one of the most iconic poses. Good legs. I think the most iconic bit about his physique is the lats and shoulders. His arms are good, but they're not that thick compared to some of the other bodybuilders of that day. It's mostly the flow of his physique. It's very, very good, very aesthetic. It's, you know, more than achievable to attain that amount of muscle as a natural. Look at the small waist on this; it's just crazy. Imagine a pro bodybuilder of today trying to do that pose. So I think it's reasonable to say that anyone past this era, there's a very, very good chance of them, you know, out of all the kind of iconic names, there's a very, very good chance of them using steroids. But for sure we can say these guys, I think, were mostly natural, and their physiques are achievable as naturals of today. I think one of the problems is today natural bodybuilders have to get much leaner, much leaner, and that slows down progress in the gym. You know, you can't get so big when you're continually dieting. You know, to diet for a show, it takes months and months and months to get down to that extremely low body fat. Unfortunately, as a natural, whereas these guys, you know, when they're dieted for their competitions, they didn't have to get anywhere near as low in terms of their body fat, so they were able to hold more muscle mass. I think that's one thing that is a detriment to today's natural bodybuilders. I also think it's a bit far-fetched, but on average I think perhaps testosterone produced in the body is a lot lower nowadays compared to back then. You know, I can't prove that, it's just an opinion, because of pollution, toxic build-up from foods and water and stuff like that. I think that's going to do something to lower our testosterone, perhaps. This is the style of training. I think these guys generally did train harder and heavier. So, you know, after maybe the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go back to a full body, old school routine, very, very challenging style of training, and try that. There's no question about it, though. You know, guys of today use too many drugs. Unfortunately, there are too many guys that use drugs. You know, if you go to any bodybuilding competition that's not tested or doesn't have natural in the title, then they all will be using drugs. And then, unfortunately, some natural competitions, you still got guys using drugs or have used drugs in the past. And you go to a gym and you've probably got 50% or more using some form of steroid or drug. And I think, unfortunately, 90% of guys that do use drugs in gyms, especially around the UK, can achieve physiques that they aspire to achieve without the use of drugs. It's simply because they don't have the patience, they don't have the willpower, they're too greedy for results, too impatient to achieve physiques like this as naturals, which is possible. You know, you just need patience. You need to be smart in the gym. You need to eat a good amount of food, but it's possible, that's for sure. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to hear your opinions on this video and what you think of bodybuilders these days compared to the bodybuilders of this bygone era, who achieve fantastic results without the use of drugs. So yeah, we're really interested to hear that. So just put a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, check out all my social media, the links are in the description box below. Stay tuned for more videos, stay strong.